Natalie had always been the woman who gave more. More time, more patience, more understanding. In every relationship, she found herself bending, adjusting, and softening her needs so others could feel comfortable. It wasn't something she consciously decided to do. It simply felt natural, almost automatic. Her mornings were quiet and predictable. Coffee growing cold on the kitchen counter, unanswered messages on her phone, and a familiar heaviness in her chest. She lived with her boyfriend, Mark, but most days felt like she lived alone beside someone. He was present physically, yet emotionally distant, wrapped in his own world of work, stress, and distractions. Natalie told herself this was what adulthood looked like. Love wasn't supposed to feel exciting all the time. Relationships required sacrifice. That was what she believed, at least. So she kept showing up, even when she felt unseen. She listened more than she spoke. She apologized, even when she wasn't wrong. Sometimes, late at night, she stared at the ceiling and wondered when she had stopped asking for more. She remembered a younger version of herself, ambitious, expressive, full of opinions. Somewhere along the way, that version had learned to stay quiet. Yet, she stayed hopeful. She believed that if she loved harder, cared deeper, and waited patiently, things would change. One day, Mark would notice her effort. One day, she would feel chosen. She didn't realize then that constantly choosing others meant slowly abandoning herself. The disappointment came on an ordinary Thursday evening. Natalie had spent the entire week planning a small dinner to celebrate her promotion. Nothing extravagant, and just her favorite meal, candles, and the comfort of sharing good news with the person she loved. She texted Mark reminders throughout the day. He replied with short messages, nothing that suggested excitement, but she ignored the knot forming in her stomach. She told herself not to overthink. The table was set by 7. By 8, the candles had melted into uneven pools of wax. Natalie checked her phone repeatedly, refreshing the screen, hoping for an explanation. At 8:30, a message finally arrived. Running late. Going out with the guys. We'll celebrate another time. She read it 3 times. No apology. No question. No recognition of her effort. Natalie sat down slowly. The silence in the apartment, louder than any argument could have been. She felt foolish for expecting more, for believing that this moment would be different. The promotion, something she had worked so hard for, suddenly felt small, almost invisible. When Mark came home later that night, cheerful and careless, she smiled out of habit. She listened to his stories. She laughed at the right moments. But something inside her shifted quietly. This wasn't anger. It wasn't even sadness anymore. It was clarity. She realized that this wasn't a single mistake. It was a pattern. And for the first time, she didn't rush to excuse it. That night, as she lay awake beside him, Natalie understood something painful but undeniable. She was lonely in a relationship. The breakup didn't happen with raised voices or slammed doors. It arrived gently, wrapped in exhaustion. The next morning, Natalie told Mark she needed space. He looked surprised, confused, but not devastated. They talked calmly. Too calmly. She explained how invisible she felt, how tired she was of waiting. He listened, nodded, promised to do better. But his words felt rehearsed, empty of urgency. Natalie knew then that staying would mean accepting the same pain in a different form. When Mark moved out, the apartment felt strangely lighter. The silence no longer pressed against her chest. It gave her room to breathe. Still, loneliness lingered, settling in during quiet evenings and slow mornings. She missed the familiarity more than the person. The routine, the idea of being someone's priority, even if she rarely was. Days passed without messages. Natalie resisted the urge to check his social media, to rewrite the ending in her mind. Instead, she sat with the discomfort. She allowed herself to feel the absence without trying to fill it immediately. Some nights were harder than others. She cried quietly, unsure whether she was mourning the relationship or the version of herself that stayed for so long. But within the silence, something unexpected began to grow, a fragile sense of peace. For the first time in years, no one was asking her to shrink. And in that space, she started to listen to her own thoughts again. One afternoon, Natalie found an old notebook while cleaning the apartment. Its pages were filled with dreams she had written years ago, travel plans, career goals, ideas she once believed in deeply. She sat on the floor, reading slowly, recognizing herself in those words. That woman had opinions. She had boundaries. She had a voice. Natalie realized she hadn't lost herself all at once. It happened gradually, through small compromises that felt harmless at the time, saying it's okay when it wasn't. Choosing peace over honesty, love over self-respect. She started doing things alone, long walks without headphones, coffee at her favorite cafe, simple moments that felt strangely new. Each choice reminded her of who she used to be and who she could become again. Therapy helped Natalie name what she had avoided for years. She had learned to equate love with sacrifice. If she wasn't giving, she felt unworthy. She traced the pattern back through past relationships. Different people, same ending. She always stayed longer than she should have. Understanding hurt, but it also empowered her. Awareness turned guilt into responsibility. She wasn't broken, she was conditioned. Natalie began practicing saying no. It felt uncomfortable, almost wrong at first. But each boundary strengthened her confidence. For the first time, she stopped asking why others didn't choose her and asked why she never chose herself. Change didn't arrive dramatically. It showed up in small decisions. Natalie signed up for a class she had postponed for years. She rearranged the apartment, creating a space that felt like hers. She spent less time waiting for validation and more time listening to her instincts. Slowly, joy returned in quiet forms. She wasn't healed, but she was healing. Mark reached out unexpectedly. His message was thoughtful, apologetic. He said he had changed, that he missed her. For a moment, Natalie considered it. The familiarity pulled at her heart. They met for coffee. He promised everything she once begged for, but Natalie listened differently now. Saying no was harder than staying had ever been. Natalie felt fear, doubt, and grief. But she also felt certainty. She chose herself, even when it hurt. Walking away felt like freedom. Natalie didn't need closure, she needed self-respect. For the first time, she trusted herself completely. Natalie wasn't searching for love anymore. She was living. And that was enough.